I love how this painting's coming together, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this process. So this is part 2. Be sure to go back and watch part 1 if you'd like to see me start with this painting from the beginning and block it in. So this video picks up after I've completed the blocked in portion of the painting, and this video is all about the sky. I'm going to show you how I refine the clouds, add those subtle, soft highlights, how I blend it into the shadows, add a little bit of color here and there. Anything and everything that has to do with the sky is what I'm doing and talking about today. And now this painting isn't finished yet. We still have to work on the foreground, and that will come in a part 3, which will probably be released in the next few days here. So I'm guessing there's gonna be at least 3 parts. There might be even 4 parts. I might add some wildlife. I want to do some oils with this painting as well, but at any rate, this video, we're going to focus all about the sky. I don't think there's really anything else to cover, so let's get right into it. Ah, yes, the sky. So skies, and particularly clouds, are one of the most favorite aspects of a painting for me, because it can really be whatever you want it to be. And yes, we're using a reference photo, and I'll have that pop up periodically throughout the painting. But even though we're using a reference, clouds change shape by the hour, by the minute, even by the second. And so at the end of the day, if you have the idea of the clouds right, if you have the layering right and the shadows properly placed in relation to the highlights, it's going to look like a good painting. So it's very relaxing, so be very relaxed about this portion of the painting. I'd never stress too hard, so if you're following along, this is really part of the painting that allows you to make those mistakes. So this is very relaxing for me. This is one of my favorite aspects. Let's go over to the palette here, and let's get started. So I've got some brushes, and I've got 3 different round brushes here. So these are the Artist Loft Scrumbler brushes, and then this is the Princeton Round Blender. So you can see they're virtually the same thing. There's a large and a small size. And I also have, not quite a 1/2 inch filbert brush, and then I've got more like a 1/4 inch filbert brush. And this is a small brush, but it has a nice round tip. I believe it was a filbert at one point, but it's worn down. Just kind of a nice small round one. It's good for smaller detail work. So as I get started on this, and I take a look at the reference photo, I think I'm probably going to start with my round brushes. And I'll probably start actually with a filbert brush and a round brush, because this will allow me to create some hard edges, some hard lines. Some of those lines aren't quite as soft. And for the softer areas, we've got something a bit more soft like this round brush. So let's start with the filbert. And of course the colors I have here today are titanium white, raw umber, quinacridone magenta, cad yellow light, yes, cad yellow light, and then phthalo blue. So I'm gonna go ahead and just take some white, and I've got some water, a little bit of water mixed in that. I'm using Liquitex Soft Body and Golden Fluid Acrylics. I like using the soft body for things like white, which becomes the base of most of my color mixtures. When you just want to tint something, so if you're using a lot of white and you just want to tint it, sometimes using golden fluid acrylics just to allow that just to tint it a little bit. It doesn't change the consistency of the paint. It's kind of good for that. That's kind of why I like goldens. But more or less, more so, the goldens offer a really great glazing capabilities. They're good for detail work, things like that. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So pick your poison. I recommend trying both and just learning from them. Okay, so enough of that. Let's go on with this white. So I've just got pure white at this point. And actually, changed my mind. I want there to be just a small amount. See, it's just a tiny amount of yellow. I'm going to mix that in all this white. And that's even too yellow for me. I know I'm going to use it all, so I'm just going to go ahead and add even more white. So this has just teeny tiny amount of yellow, just to give it some brightness, some color. And what I want to do is refine these highlights a bit. I need to know where they're going to be. Want to shape the clouds accurately. But like I said, if you make a mishap and you go whoop, that's all right too. It's in the right place, so that's all that really matters. But what I'm going to start to do is think about where my highlights are going to be, which would be the tops of the clouds. And so they just need to be in the right spot for the given cloud that I'm thinking about, the given cloud I'm trying to depict. So this is a pretty complex sky, even though skies are easy for me, or relaxing, not necessarily easy all the time. It still takes a bit of concentration. So I'm going to layer white over the top of this yellow, but I think that this yellow color is just a good way to start. Because I do like a bit of color. I know it's early yet, but I'm probably going to add some oils to finish this painting. There's another question I get a lot, is why would I add oils over the top? Well, I can blend better. I can change things without having to rush as they dry slower. They cover a little bit better, so the brights are going to be a little bit brighter. Darks might be even a little bit darker, more luminous. There's just a lot of advantages with oil paints. Slow drying properties just give you a lot of things that fast drying acrylics don't give you. And on the other hand, fast drying acrylics give you things that the slow drying oils might not give you. So I just like to use both. So I'm really going to take my time with these clouds right here. I don't want to overdo it too fast. And just end up creating more work for myself. So I'm just going quite slow. It's going to go faster once I get everything established, as far as the outline of each cloud, where the highlights are, where the shadows are. Once I get all that established, the rest can kind of go, you can just, once you know where everything's going to be, it does go quicker. So it's not a huge problem. Lovely. I'm not going to go too far down into the sky with this because, like I said in the previous video, if you watch part 1, they do start to change color as I go down into there. So now, as I'm working at this, I'm just thinking about what I'm doing right now. This doesn't necessarily have to be perfect. So I'm worried about the tops of the clouds, but the lower end, as the highlights drag into the shadows, it's not quite correct at this point. And I'll have to work that. So it's going to turn into a game of going back and forth. You've seen me do this in the past. You go from the highlights to the shadows, highlights, shadows. It just kind of becomes the nature of the beast when you're working at something this complex. And you know, you could go about it more carefully. You certainly could, but that also I feel takes a little bit more time, at least for myself. So I would say the reasoning behind what I'm doing and the way I'm doing it is really just because for me, it's the quickest way I can get to a finished painting. And that goes back to why I use acrylics first, why I do anything that I do, is because time is one of the most important things for me. When you make art a profession, it becomes very critical that you get things done and in a timely manner. So any way that I can speed up the process of how I do things without reducing the quality, that's a good thing, and I'm interested in it. Yeah, it should be pretty good. Just taking a step back to look at it. This is going to work out just fine. I left this spot all shaded with a solid color of shadow down in this area, so I'm just having to paint the highlights over the top. So, as I'm thinking about this even more so, I think one of the main reasons why I'm starting with this, with these highlights, is because I didn't paint, if you watched the first video, I didn't paint these highlights with anything. So it's just raw canvas. These white areas are just raw canvas. So I'd really just want this thing to be covered with paint first and foremost before I get further ahead. That's probably why I went this direction, even more so than just being efficient with my time. Okay. Just about there. I'm gonna go ahead and just cover some of this down below. So I'm gonna grab some more white. And I'm going to grab some yellow and some magenta. So just kind of an orange color. A little more yellow than that. Test it out here. Might be too orange, so just grab some more white. Add that in. Try it out. Okay, I think that's closer anyways to what I was looking for. Gonna squeeze off some of that paint and pick it up so it's more on the tip of the brush rather than the base of it. It's soothing to hear that train come through. It's a train that comes through just about a quarter mile from the house. To be honest, I don't even hear anymore when I lay in bed or something like that. It's just kind of, I'm sure if any of you live by a busy railroad, it just becomes background noise. You don't even notice. About the first 6 months I did. Okay. Let me think here. So as I'm kind of following along here with my reference photo, none of this is that accurate. It's in the right place, but on a micro scale. So on a macro, it's in the right place. I got my oranges down here. I got my lighter colors up here, shadows in between. But when you shrink it into this individual area, it's not really that close to my reference photo, but it gives you the idea of being in the same place. So that's what's nice about these clouds. You can get away with it even with the mountains a little bit, but boy, you just don't have to get them that accurate, the clouds anyways, to make you feel like you're right there where you took the photograph. A little more magenta. I'm just going to add that in. Okay. I want to get too far ahead here. A little more magenta. I'm just trying to think about something through here. Just kind of missing a little bit. Didn't really leave any detail there when I added those shadows, so I'm just trying to make sure that I got something here started. A little more magenta. There we go. So as we get way down deep into the sky, just above those mountains, we got a little bit more color, such as I'm doing now, really creates that effect of distance, that illusion of distance. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that right now. What I'm going to do is just let this dry. Well, change of plans. I'm actually going to take the smaller brush, just a small brush, a little bit of moisture on it. I'm just going to take pure white, just solid white. And I'm going to start looking for those, since I have it on my palette here, I'm going to start looking for those areas of extreme highlight. Just going to go over the top. Try to brighten those areas. Get them as bright as I can get them. I'm pretty certain this is where those bright areas are going to be, so I'm just going ahead and committing myself to that. Looking good. Okay, I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna let all this dry, gather my thoughts, and we're back. Okay, so the next thing that I want to start working on, we got a lot of these bright highlights. They're starting to overpower this upper area here. Is I want to start to blend those in. So some of them are going to start to disappear as I blend them into the shadows. And it's basically, we just want to refine our highlights and smooth that out as we get further down and lower into the sky. So I'm going to go back over to my palette here, and I'm going to switch to this round brush. So this is the Round Blender Princeton Select number 9 or number 6. I'm going to go with number 6. Okay. So let's take some white, and this just allows you to create some nice soft brush strokes. So I want to create like a gray. So I'm going to get some umber, some blue, some magenta, I'm going to mix that in with the white. Okay, so that's looking pretty gray. But we want this to be kind of a warm color, so I'm going to mix up some orange. I'm going to grab some white. A little more yellow with this. Okay. Give this a test. That's probably going to be too strong. I'm just going to keep adding white. Okay, that looks a little bit better. I'm just going to let this dry for a second. I like that. I might even add some more white, touch of gray. Okay. Now I've probably got too much paint on my brush. I'm just going to dab that off. Pick up some water with my finger, put it on my palette. So now I've got a little bit of water on the palette I can grab from, so I'm not dipping my brush into the cup, which is going to oversaturate my brush with too much water. So just pick up a little bit of water, grab that color. Boy, just can't seem to grab enough white. I'm grabbing more white here. There we go. That's about the color I want. Now, what I'm going to do is just start to work from the bottom of these highlights up into the lighter portion of them. So what you can see already is that this is going to start to blend these two colors together. little more white. So this becomes a long and sort of a painstaking process. But we want those clouds to be nice, realistic. So here's another good example. What I'm going to do with this color. As we get up further into the sky, so you can start to see this starting to happen here, where it's starting to blend together. I'm going to be able to refine all of this. As we go further up into the sky, we've got the same color down here. We've got it up here, but it seems a bit stark. It's very dark for being that high up. We want that to appear like there's a lot of light coming down in through here. So I'm actually going to brighten those patches of color up by just washing this color completely over the top. Watch how that, as we lighten those, how much that's going to enhance this painting overall. Grab some more white. So this is this portion of the painting up here. I touched on this as I was blocking this in. It has just a lot of variation, and so this light color, this lighter tone that I'm laying on right now is just going to allow me to detail that very subtly. It's going to add a lot to these highlights. Like I say in a lot of my videos, this sort of becomes a game of just going back and forth from highlight to shadow, trying to find that sweet spot, that right pattern that gives you the effect you're after. Okay, now you can see everything's getting nice and soft, but what I want to make sure that I'm doing also is I'm getting the right pattern down. So I want it to look like these clouds are three-dimensional, and so I want to keep that in mind, how these clouds are layering on top of one another. And so I want this cloud, so we got to imagine this cloud right through here. We want this one to appear like it's in front of all this back here. So I want to keep that line up top nice and hard, and underneath will fade it down. So we got a hard edge up top, soft edge below, and it's going to give us the illusion that that cloud's curling upwards and back and then folding over the top, and then we can look past it towards this other cloud here. So just stuff to keep in mind. It's not too complicated or difficult, but just stuff that you can't forget about. Things I think about when I'm painting. So I'll blend all the way up to that top edge, but I won't fade that top edge out really at all. A little more gray into this. I'm just trying to work those soft areas down below. So just following that bottom edge all the way across. Got a little water. Gonna pull some of that gray up, mix it in. So this doesn't give us the final effect, but as you can see, and I'm just going to take a step back, so just take a look at it. Everything's starting to become a little bit more three-dimensional. We're getting closer, we're getting there, we're on the right track, but it takes a lot of patience. A lot of this stuff doesn't just come instantly. I'm going to pick up some more magenta and yellow. I'm just kind of mixing on the fly now. More white, a little bit of yellow. So, like I said might have been part one of this painting, or maybe it was the beginning of this video. Now I can't even remember, but I probably will switch to oils. So my goal here, and oils allow me to smooth everything out, but my goal here right now is to really get all of the colors down, get everything formulated perfectly, but maybe not just quite as smooth as it could be. So we want all the colors to be in place. We want the three-dimensional look to the clouds to be in place, whatever it may be. We want it to all look the way we want it to be in the final painting, but there just might be some imperfections within that. And that's what I'm really looking for. So I'm not worried about making everything perfectly smooth. Again, this is just a process to help me speed it up so that I can get to the oils quicker and finish my painting with one layer, sometimes two, with oil paint. I just got some more white, a little bit of yellow. Just kind of refining some things. Creating a little bit of randomness to some of these edges. Okay, so I'm just taking some more umber and blue, basically just mixing a gray, umber, blue, magenta, adding white to that gray, and then just warming it up. Some yellow and magenta. Okay, so that's starting to come together pretty nicely. Created some imperfections for myself. I'm gonna take a break. Take a second, clean my water, clean my brush, get some more colors. And just kind of let everything dry. It's always nice. And then I'll come back and we'll try to begin to wrap up some of these transition areas. So after taking a step back and really looking at what I have here, I'm very happy with it. And I've been comparing it, and I'll try to make sure to have a picture of the reference photo pop up. But I'm starting to compare it back and forth to the reference photo, and there's some things that, so we have the overall color scheme pretty much the same as the reference photo. We have our orange tones down through here. We're starting to shape these clouds a little bit better, a little more of a three-dimensional look. The colors, like I said, are accurate. The contrast is pretty much there. But there's a few things that aren't necessarily the same as the reference photo. Particularly if we look at, say, this area up through here. The reference photo has more of a darker tone that comes down through this portion. And then this line right here, if you look in my photo, it kind of goes, look at my painting, it kind of goes up and then down and then back up again and then down right here. That reference photo is more just straight across. The reference photo doesn't really have this dark area right here. And there's just some differences between the two. So what I'm trying to get at is that at this point, what I tend to do is I don't want to say abandon the reference photo, but that's sort of what I'm doing here, because what I've done is I've gotten the reference photo to get me to this point where the colors are the same. There's blue up here, there's gold down here, there's a bigger cloud right here, but there's small details and technicalities about it that are different. And so what I tend to do is embrace those differences. Now I'm going to stick with this shape of the cloud, even though the reference photo doesn't have this shape. I'm going to turn this into my own cloud. And if you look at the openings in the blue sky here, the reference photo has 1, 2, 3, but they're not really the same shape. This one's kind of split in half. I would say my cloud probably goes lower down through here. So I'm not going to try to fix that. I'm going to embrace that and just refine what I have. So these become my own unique clouds, and even though we base them off the reference photo, they're now becoming my own, essentially different clouds. So I hope that makes sense. I just tried to give you a little more insight of what's going through my mind right now, hoping that might provide you some additional value. And so what I'm going to do is just continue to do the same thing. I'm just taking a look here. I might switch to a filbert brush, and then I got this smaller round brush as well. I'm going to take my white and I'm going to mix up a gray like I did before. Just all three colors here, minus the yellow. Mix that into my white, got a nice gray, and then just warm it up. I'm going to test that. That's pretty much the same. Okay, so that just about matches the color on here. It might be slightly more blue, but I actually kind of want some of that. It'd be a good transition color. And if we look closely at that reference, you'll notice that some of these midtones, we've got, like I said, the clouds are more reddish down here, and they're more golden up here. Well, in between, we want maybe some cooler blues, some cooler tones. I just want to start to clean up. Let me take some water. I'm going to start to clean up some of these shadows. I can just use a damp finger just to fan out the top portion of that. Blend it into those highlights a little bit better. A little more white. And just kind of blending that around. Okay, now hopefully you can start to see that effect taking place where it's just a slightly different hue of color right through here. I'm gonna take a step back and look at that myself. Yeah, looking pretty good. I'm gonna take some magenta. Add some magenta to it. All right, now we've got kind of a streak right through here, but as this goes up, I might want to lighten this portion, make it look like that part right up here. I don't like how it curves up on me right here. So I'm going to pick up some white, warm that up a bit, some orange into it. Okay, so I'm just trying to smooth out some of those blends. Kind of off in my own world here. All right, take a step back again, just kind of look what I'm doing. Lighten that up a bit. Wash the brush off a bit. Okay, now I'm just going to continue on working my way down. I'm going to add some pink, get some of this gray, add some magenta to that. And just blend it up into what I just did. grab a little more white. Pick up some more of that magenta. Add some yellow. I just want a warmer orange tone. Still don't like this area up here, just kind of making some adjustments to it. Okay. It's looking slightly better. Let's move further down. This area is kind of a mess still, but I might try my smaller brush here. See what I can do. Just mix some gray. I added a little bit of that magenta into it. So it's just a bit rough. And just to fix that, it's just a matter of continuing to work on it, having a little bit of patience. That's going to be too orange. Need more blue. Little magenta. Just trying to find that color. That's not perfect. It's more of a gray tone right now, but I can change that. Okay. I'm going to wash that brush. And I'm going to mix more gray. So we're going to get umber, magenta, and blue. Mix in some white. We've got some gray here. And I'm just going to pick up some magenta. And I'm going to add some yellow to make it more orange. A little bit more white. Okay. So, I think tad more magenta. Now, as we look at these clouds here, I want these clouds to look like they're in front, but then I want to be able to see past them, maybe into another cloud back there. So I'm going to kind of fill in the gaps with some shadow. So I just go in between, little upside down triangles, fill in the gap, a little bit of shadow. See how now that looks like this cloud exists right here, and then behind it we've got some shadowing. Same thing. I'm just basically going around these clouds. So now you can see the highlight of this cloud is right here. So I'm filling in what's in between, creating a cloud like that, shade the middle. It just adds some depth, makes it a little bit interesting. Starts to separate those clouds out. More white. Kind of dragging myself into the magenta over here. Try to make some of these clouds a little bit more three-dimensional. So I'm softening, I'm blending the highlights down into the shadows. So it's very tedious. It's stressful too. I can't lie to you guys and say that I don't get stressed out doing things like this, where it's just so intricate all in all to get things to look right. You just gotta face it. Just keep moving. Softening little edges at a time. Anywhere where I can soften. Okay. I'm going to step away again, just kind of assess, keep doing this to myself, and just kind of see where I'm at, and we'll come back in just a second. All right, now the last thing that I want to begin to focus on is, if you notice as we go down, so the colors are fairly uniform up here between the highlights and the shadows. Just the color scheme doesn't look too blotchy or messy. As we get down into these oranges, you might notice some orange tones, but then some more diluted or neutral tones. So we kind of have some yellowish gray tones and then some reddish tones. I want to unify all of that. So let's go ahead and take care of that. First things first. I think that's really one of the last things that I need to take care of. I'm going to go back to the filbert brush, and you can see I've cleaned up my palette, got a brand new sheet, same colors. Okay. So I'm going to take some magenta, and some yellow, mix that in with my white. I'm going to see how this fares. Okay, that's too vibrant. So I'm going to mix some white right here. Okay, probably could go more on the yellow side. Pick up some yellow, add it to my white, tap some water on the palette. Okay, so that's probably more like it. So this is going on, and hopefully you can see that. A little bit more yellow, more vibrant, saturated than what I had on there. And I'm just going to go across. Just make sure that these colors are uniform. Okay, so that's looking much better. What I'm going to do is actually switch to a round brush. So this is a pretty small round brush. More like a liner brush. It's a Artist Loft number 2 Vita. I'm going to take some white, some magenta, some yellow, and I'm going to try to make some highlight. So at some point here, it's a little bit too yellow. Some point here, I'm going to have to switch to more of this liner brush. So I can really detail out some of these clouds. And I'm just doing the same thing that I did to the clouds above, but on a much smaller scale. So I'm just trying to blend them down into the shadows. Just small highlights, small details. Pick up some more yellow. Try to make it a brighter highlight. So hopefully you can see that going on there. Just these subtle tones. Now you should be able to see these clouds taking shape. Okay, so now you can see the shape of these clouds back here, much similar to these clouds up top. I'm going to try this round blender brush again. I'll probably just start by mixing with a different brush. Okay, now I'm going to take blue, umber, magenta. So we mix kind of a blue-gray there, and I'm going to mix it into white. Mix a little more umber, that warms it up. And add some magenta to it. Want this to be a lot brighter. Some more magenta. Somewhere right around there, perhaps. I'm going to test this. So I'm going to spot it right there. I can already tell that's too vibrant. Want it to be just slightly darker though. Test it again, right over the top. Okay, I think that's going to be perfect. This brush might work. I might have lied. Just going to mix some water into that. Lightly try to fluff this color to just exaggerate some of those shadows. Create an extra level of dimension into these clouds down here. Look at that. Now watch as it's drying. Watch how those clouds, those shadows are just starting to pop out at you now, which gives it more depth. See how it goes on about the same color as I'm applying it right here, but watch as it dries. So if you want things to be slightly darker, apply it about the same color, and then as it dries, it just becomes just slightly darker. And that trips a lot of people up because acrylics dry darker. And there's no trick I can tell you to get over that. It's just experience. It's just time working with it, as is with everything. You're not going to understand oils. I didn't understand oils for the longest time, and they scared me when I got started into them. But it goes the other way too. I know for a lot of people, as I get a lot of questions about acrylics. They're not scary though. Just takes practice like anything that you might want to try. Some more water, magenta, some white. Okay, I'm going to take a step back. So I'm just stepping back from the painting, and yeah, It's looking really nice. I like that. Now, I'm going to apply some of the same color to just above, right into these clouds above, just to blend it all together, give that transition a nice soft look. So I'm getting rid of some of that gray I added to those clouds up above. Okay, I'm going to step back, take a look at that again. Beautiful. Love it. I love it. So now we've brought some of that magenta right up into here. So that just gives that, it just makes you want to wrap your eyes right down into that area back there. I really love what's going on here. So, okay, let me just take a second, take a breath. Here's what I'm going to do. The rest of the sky, and I'm going to speed this up because this becomes very, very timely. The rest of the sky, all I'm going to do is just try to soften some of these areas up. And the process is identical. And the reason why I'm going to speed it up, because there's absolutely no difference between what I've been doing and what I'm going to do. I'm just going to try to continue to do that in some of these areas around the highlights, just to enhance some of these transition zones. I want there to appear like there's a little more ripple in some of these clouds, kind of like what we did right here. So I'm going to take a liner brush, do the same thing we did with boop, 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 these three clouds, and a couple things around here. And I'm going to keep doing the same right through here, using the same colors that we did up in here in the first place. So I'm going to take some white, and we got some, just mix up some gray. Perfect. A little bit of warmth to it. Let me just try this out. All right, decent. So you see how I'm going to divide this out? I'm starting to think about individual puffs of clouds and how their highlights are going to look. So I'm going to do this one example right here just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Really simple, very straightforward. So I'm thinking about the shadows right now, trying to go around the highlights. Okay, now you see what we got right there? After doing that little bit, it adds so much dimension to that highlight. Now, pick up some white. I'm going to add a touch of yellow. A little magenta to that. So this is much brighter. Geez, I can go even lighter than that. Okay, right here. Right there. Little puff right there. Another one. Very lightly I'm applying the brush right now. Just trying to gently add some dimension to these clouds right through here. That highlight right there, another highlight behind it, and then what I applied in between becomes the shadow between the two lumps of clouds. Highlight down here. Now, take a look right through here, how intricate that looks now. And if I take another step back to the painting, really look at that. That's starting to look very nice, very realistic, detailed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to break up some of these highlights just like this. And I'll just kind of continue to poke at this one as well. And what I mean by that, just by taking some more of a warm white, even brightening some of those highlights I added closer to the top of that cloud, some of the shadows, just brightening some of the shadows that I added closer to the top of that cloud. Just to give it more of a round look, make it all kind of blend together. And that's it. So I'm going to continue to do this, poke at it, and then we'll slow it down, and we should be just about done with the clouds. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching. Please be sure to ask questions if you have any. Remember that I try to get to all the questions that I can, and I'm always happy to try and help with any questions that you have. So please be sure to leave all comments in the description below. And of course, if you'd like to support my channel, if you haven't already, please check out my free print giveaway, as well as my eBay auctions and website. Remember that I auction off all the paintings here on the videos through my eBay. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and we will see you next time.